In this tutorial, I'm going to give you an introduction to sheet metal in Fusion, and as an example, we are going to build a burger press. So let's jump over to Fusion and get started on this. Let's start with a sketch, as we normally do. Let's click this top view, and so we're building a burger press, so let's just make it something simple. Let's go with a round burger press. That seems to make sense. How big do we want it? Probably around 6 inches in diameter. That should work just fine. And now we need some pieces coming off the side, and those are what we are going to bend up vertically and where we can mount the handle. So I'm going to make a line. I'm going to make it a construction line, and we'll come out to the side here. Okay. And then let's do a rectangle, do a center rectangle, just somewhere centered on this line. Oh, you can see we have construction still on. Turn that off. And we'll just put that kind of randomly for now. We'll make this point and the line, let's make that a midpoint, this point here in this line. Okay. And then we want to find a coincident. There we go. Let's make this coincident with the circle there. Okay, so now we have a flange kind of coming off the side. Again, this is what is going to be bent up vertically and where the handle will be mounted. How big do we want this? Let's make it 1.5 inches. And then the length of it, well, we want this thing to, let's see, probably be about 4 or 5 inches tall. Let's go with 4.5, and we can always adjust that later. Okay, and now I want this same feature on the other side because we need to bend this on both sides of our center circle here. So let's create another line. Again, make it construction. We want this one to go vertical, so we can use this as a mirror line. We'll come up here, select mirror. It asks us for the objects. So we will click these 4 edges of our rectangle. The mirror line will be the one we just created. And now you can see we have this mirrored to the other side. Okay, we are already getting very close. Let's finish that sketch. As you can see, we have the beginnings of what will be our burger press. But we need to actually create a body, and we want to create it out of sheet metal because this design will work very well if we make it out of sheet metal. So what you can do is start with a flange, and this will ask you to click some of these closed surfaces, and we will go through and click everything that we want to be cut out of sheet metal. Look at that, it looks pretty good. But here is something that you may not be familiar with. So this is where you can select your sheet metal rule, which essentially is the material that you will be making this out of, the thickness of the sheet metal, and some other properties around it. And you can see I have a lot of these already created. But how did I do that? Well, let's go into that first. So we'll leave this sketch as is. We'll come up here to sheet metal rules. And you can see there's this long list of all these different materials and then different thicknesses that I've created. I've also based some of these off of SendCutSend properties, which that is the online shop that I recommend you use if you're building stuff out of sheet metal and you just want it for a good price and a quick turn. They can make parts in sometimes a few days, which is wild, and their pricing is probably some of the best I've ever seen. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not getting paid to say that. It's honestly just true. So let's see. If we go to new rule, you can see what properties we need to pull from SendCutSend. Let's make this a little wider. I guess we can't quite see the name here, but basically the rule name is just the name of the material. At least that's the way I do it. I also like to add the thickness of it. Let's check a different one. That might be more likely to be used for this. Let's do 60 thou 304 stainless steel. Okay. So you are going to want the K factor. There's also some bend conditions. The bend radius is also very important. And there's some other conditions in here which will be important for different types of sheet metal design, but for an introduction, you do not need to pay too much attention to at this point. Let's go over to SendCutSend and you can see where we can actually find these properties. So here, what you'll want to do, we're already in the 304 stainless sheet metal, but how I got there is going here to this drop down, go to stainless steel, and you will be where you need to be. You can scroll down and you will see on the edge here, there's all these different thicknesses for the 304 stainless steel. We are going to be working with 60 thou. And so if you click there and you have all these material details and specifications. So if you're laser cutting this, you are going to want to pay attention to a lot of these details. Some of your minimum bridge sizes, so you know how thin you can make some of these parts of your sheet metal piece, your minimum hole size, your minimum hole to edge distance, something like this. These are all things that are very, very important when designing parts that are going to be laser cut and are made of sheet metal. But for this tutorial, we care about the bending specifications. So if we look through these, you can find your effective bend radius at 90 degrees is 70 thou, so keep that in mind. And then the other big one we want to find is K factor right here. You can see that the K factor is 0.34. So we go back over to Fusion. This has already been inserted into this new rule. I made this quite a while ago. And you can see the K factor is 0.34, and we will discuss the impact of that on the sheet metal design in just a few minutes. You can also see the thickness is here, the bend radius 0.07. So we are ready to go to use this new rule for the part we are designing. So let's hit save. We'll close out of the sheet metal rules and wait for this to load. There we go. Let's go back up to our flange. Here we will select our closed profiles. There we go. And here we have our sheet metal rule. Let's see if I can click there. Let's scroll down and find the rule that we were just looking at. That's 304 stainless steel, 60 thou thick from SendCutSend. Click that, hit OK. And now we have our, at least the beginning of our burger press. This is what is going to be cut out of the sheet metal. And looking at it, you might think that looks a little bit too thin for a burger press. And the nice thing is, this is very easy to edit. So we go back in, double click on our flange, and oh, that is something else. We'll go here, double click. And oh, actually, I am showing you the wrong approach to this. If you want to change your rule or the material or the thickness that you're using, you can actually just come right up here and double click on that or click here. There we go. Okay, so it took a little while to find it, but essentially you can just switch the rule by clicking on this button that pops off to the side. That is going to give you this little pop-up here. Drop that down. And let's see, the 60 thou is a little thin. Let's go with 1/8 inch. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks perhaps a bit too thick, but let's just keep going and see how this all shakes out. So what's next? So you want to think about this, how it's going to be manufactured. So from a top-down view, you can see this is all going to be laser cut out. So we want to get it to a point where we can have it laser cut in the shape we want, and then it will actually be bent. And these two sides will be bent vertically, and that is where we can mount our handle. So you often don't want hard corners in a laser cut part. Corners often lead to a place where the laser has to stop and change direction. This can cause heat buildup and cause some deformation, so it's not ideal. It also doesn't always look as good. So let's add some fillets. Okay, we'll zoom in here, add a fillet in each of these corners. Okay, come in here, fillet here, there we go. And let's see, 0.15. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's go 0.25. Zoom back out. And okay, that's looking good. And then we also probably don't want hard corners on the ends of this. So let's add some fillets there. Make sure we click the right edge. Okay, click this edge and this final one. And we know the width of this is 1.5, so let's make the radius 0.75 and we'll have a nice rounded end. And this makes sense because the handle we are going to design for this will also be round, and so everything will flow aesthetically and look really good. Again, looking at this one more time, I think these radii are a little too large. I'm going to edit those. Let's drop it down to 0.15 again. I think that will look a little bit better. So now we need to add some lines, which will be the bend lines. And those will tell us the center at which our bend will bend around, the center of that bend radius. So we're going to create a sketch on the top of this. And we are going to add in these bend lines, which are pretty simple. Just click the line tool. We'll bring that vertical. We'll come over here. We'll add one on this side as well. Okay, and we want to make sure we're dimensioning these so that we have the same distance from the center point. And let's make that 3.2, 3.15. Let's go 3.1 actually on that. Make sure it's the same on the other side. 3.1, and then we can test out our bends and see what we think. Let's finish that sketch. We'll come back up here to create, and we want to do a bend. Click that. It's going to ask you for the stationary side first, which will be this side, and then you want to click the side that is going to be bent vertically, and you kind of come, instead of clicking the face out to the side, you want to come up close to the bend line here, and there it is. It bends it up and shows you a preview of what it is going to look like. There's a few things that you can use to adjust this bend. Obviously, you can grab here and you can change the angle of your bend. We're going to want 90 degrees, which you can see over here. You can type in 75. Oh, I hit enter and it's taking a little while to load, but that put it at 75. Probably not what we want for this burger press. So let's go and edit that. Let's switch it back to 90. Okay. And I keep hitting enter just out of habit, but we want to keep this dialog open. One other important thing is the bend line position. And so this just tells you where your bend is actually starting. So here you can see the bend is starting right after the line that we just drew. And that is set right here. We can also move it to where the center of the bend occurs where the bend line is located. Or you can also change it to the end. In this case, it's going to be a bit funky if we change it to the end. As you will see, our radius we added is kind of deformed. That might work in some situations. In this case, I think our best bet is actually going to be the center. I'll click that one more time. And here you can see it looks pretty good. There's not much unwanted deformation happening in this corner here where we added our fillets. And overall, I think will look pretty good. We want to add another selection. So we will select our face here and then the side we want to be bent up. Again, we want to make sure that the bend position is the same and that we are getting the same result on both sides. Click OK. And a way to make sure that we have the same settings on both of our bent flanges is just to make sure those are at the same height and it all looks good. So here we have essentially what we will order from SendCutSend, but we are missing a few critical features. We want to be able to mount a handle that goes from one side to the other. So we're probably going to need some holes. So let's create a sketch on one of these sides. Okay. we want these to be centered about the center point of this curve here, of this radiused edge. So let's see, let's create construction line. Let's find the center point of all of this. There it is. Come off to the side. Okay. So here we're going to use these 2 points to locate our through holes that we can use to locate our screws that will actually be holding the handle onto this burger press. We want this to be centered. So let's click that point and then this line. Okay, that's centered. Our spacing, let's make it 0.65. That looks about right. Finish the sketch. Okay, so now we have our location for these holes. Let's actually add those. We'll come up to, go to solid. We'll go to our hole tool here. And now we need to select our points. Select 1 and 2. And as you can see, the default are massive holes. So let's make sure to update that. Let's see, what do we want? A clearance hole. What size? We can probably do M3. No, let's go with some M4s for this. And that is probably good. But we want to go through both sides. So let's change how far this goes. Look for the extent of it. Right now it's a distance. Let's just go through all. And that will create our through holes on both sides. Okay, now that is done. Now we need to create our handle real quick and we will be done with this burger press. So click on this face here. Let's create a sketch on that face. And this is going to be our handle. And I'm just going to assume we want our handle to be made out of wood. Find the center point. And it will be very aesthetically pleasing, as well as a useful and durable handle. And we can also use wood screws then to attach it to our bent sheet metal piece. Let's do an extrusion from this face. And we can either pull this out or we can just do, instead of distance, we can do to an object. We'll come up to this other face. There we go. There's a few issues. This pulled our clearance holes all the way through the part, which we don't want. So let's go back to object, see if we can click these other faces. Oh, that is not the object we wanted to click. Let's see, let's start over with this. I kind of got it a bit messed up just to make sure that we are doing this clearly. So again, we're going to do an extrusion. We need to click the profiles that we want to extrude. In this case, we want to make sure we are clicking the profiles of our through holes, as well as this overall circle, so that we can create this handle without having the through holes extruded through the whole thing. Now we will go to distance, to object, up to this face. And here it looks like it's all the same material. And that's because we have the operation set to join. We want to make sure we make this a new body. Now it will be a separate body from our sheet metal. Hit OK. And now just to confirm, let's check our bodies. We have one sheet metal body, which you can tell is sheet metal because of the little sheet metal shape here. And then our other body is just a normal body and it is separate. We can hide one or we can hide the other. Okay, so now let's add some materials to this and we will finish up this smash burger press. So let's go to modify, physical material. We want the sheet metal to be metal. As we said earlier, it's 304 stainless steel. So we're scrolling down, now we're into the stainless steels. There's a few different kinds. Here's 304 right here. Drag that over and apply it to that body. Okay. It's kind of annoying. We have some of these sketches showing, so let's go ahead and hide that. Okay. And now we also need to add a material to this handle, either a material or we can add just an appearance. That will also work. So let's get out of the metals here and see what we have for options for wood. We want to make this out of wood, so what do we got? And you can scroll through pine, walnut, oak. I think walnut will look pretty good on this handle. And there we go. So now we have 304 stainless steel for our sheet metal and walnut for our handle. And if you want to get an idea of what this will look like in real life, you can always come up here and easily switch to the render tool, which is one of the things I love about Fusion. It's very quick and easy. You can do an in-canvas render, and right away you start to see kind of what this is going to look like in real life. And if you want to add screws, that is easy to do as well. I would recommend going to McMaster and adding some screws. I've got a few that we can probably just add in right now. Let's go here. Let's go to our YouTube tutorials. We got some hardware, and here we go. Here's a screw. We can right click, insert into current design, and let's see. There is our wood screw. Let's add a few more of those. We'll hit OK. Let's get rid of that. Click on the screw, and we will just simply copy and paste a few more. There's 2, enter, 3, enter, and 4. Okay. We will assemble this. We're going to need a joint. And this is something that I will go into more detail in a different tutorial. So let's go to one of these screws. We're going to add a joint right there. And we want this to be located on this hole. Okay, and so that is assembled. Let's quickly go through and do this for the rest of our screws. And I have J set to a hotkey for joints, so it makes it really easy to pull up that tool. There we go. Do on that side. And we will keep going to these other ones. Insert it on these holes, and now you can see it's pointing in the opposite direction. We'll quickly just flip that. Okay. Add the final one here. Make sure we get this the correct point for this joint so that they line up in the location where they will need to be once it is actually installed. And there we go. Now we have our screws, we have our wooden handle, and our sheet metal burger press. And sometimes these can be a little bit annoying. So a way to get rid of these, which essentially just show you that you have a fixed joint at that point, you can go to your display settings. And if you look through here, you can see what your object visibility is. We want to get rid of joints, and now those are gone. So if you find those visually annoying, there's an easy way to hide them. Let's hop back over to our render tool. And now you can see we have our screws in there, which makes it look even more like a finished design. And with this in-canvas render, we get a pretty realistic idea of what this tool, the Smash Burger Press, will look like. And that is all for this. So that is a quick introduction to sheet metal. I thought it was useful to show you how to do this on a real tool. You could actually go and get this made from SendCutSend in minutes. I could upload this right now, get a quote, and press order in the next 15 minutes and have essentially the core part of my Smash Burger Press. That is it. If you are enjoying these tutorials, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, share it with coworkers. Get it out there. That is all very helpful and a great way to support me as I make more of these. And so I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe, as I mentioned before, and stay tuned for more tutorials coming down the line.